that we've been tracking for you. Remember, the Supreme Court has come down very heavily on YouTuber Ranveer Allahabadia. In fact, it has barred further FIRs against the YouTuber, so which is why this is a bit of a relief also which is coming in. However, this relief is interim because this is regarding the entire controversy about the remarks that he had made on India's Got Talent. The Supreme Court, however, has pulled him up in very stern words, questioned his sense of responsibility as a public figure. The Supreme Court has also allowed him to seek police protection in Maharashtra or Assam if he feels that he's getting threats. He's been messaging and posting about how his family also has received threats. In fact, during the hearing, we saw very sharp criticism which was coming in from Justice Surya Khan, who remarked that just because somebody is popular, they cannot take society for granted. In fact, not just that, the Supreme Court also has said that this shows that this is something very perverted about the way he has thought, and he has also embarrassed his family. So let's quickly tell you what really are the interim reliefs that he has managed to get. Essentially, there's going to be no action on these FIRs against him, and also the second big point is going to be that there are going to be no further FIRs against Ranveer Allahabadia. So let me go across to our panelists. In fact, joining us today, Swapnil Kothari, senior lawyer. Abha Singh is also joining us, a lawyer and an activist. Abha Singh, I'm going to come to you first. This is a mixed bag, isn't it, coming in from the Supreme Court? It has provided him shield from getting arrested, shield for more FIRs being slapped. However, the words have been very stern. Will it go a long way in setting a precedent and standards?
Of course, it's a message to all the YouTubers, to all the stand-up comedians, in fact, to even politicians, anyone who makes obscene comments, that you should know Supreme Court is not going to take it lightly, because Supreme Court has really used very strong words and has said that it's a depraved mindset, you're vomiting out perverseness, and also saying that there is a rule of law. Supreme Court has clearly said there's a rule of law for everything, and also that obscenity definition has to be more cryptic. So I think Supreme Court has given him protection, which was much logical, because ultimately it was not any rape or murder. It was not a heinous offense. It was freedom of speech, pertaining to freedom of speech. But since it violated the law of the land, it broke the norms of the society. The Supreme Court said you're breaking the norms of the society. You are making the parents ashamed. You are making the daughters ashamed. I think those comments are enough to wrap up these stand-up comedians and all those who talk of obscenity. But yes, giving him protection, he is supposed to cooperate. And after this, if he doesn't cooperate, then Mumbai police can always go back to the court and say that protection should be removed. So it will be in his interest that they come, cooperate, give statement, and help Mumbai police in doing this case.
Well, this is an interesting case, Swapnil Kothari, because there are those who have backed him as well. Several of the other YouTubers, several of the other stars, celebrities, many of them have come out and publicly endorsed Ranveer Allahabadia's what they call his right to speech.
Meghna, as they say that when you're walking on the road with a cane, your right to swing the cane stops where my nose begins. So you can make as many comments as you want, the freedom of speech is there, but it is subject to public order morality. Now, when you make such kind of comments which are clearly obscene, which speak of a dirty mind, which spew vomit, as described by the Supreme Court, in no uncertain terms, this clearly falls under the definition of obscenity under the BNS Act. I believe that the Supreme Court, obviously what was there before the Supreme Court was clubbing of the FIRs and all of those things. So obviously they had the power to say that, okay, let him get all the FIRs clubbed, etc., and let there be no further arrests, or rather further FIRs. So he has to deal with the current FIRs that are there before him. And I believe that these FIRs should reach the logical conclusion, which is obscenity, because that is what they would have included in FIR. But as far as the modesty of a woman and all that is concerned, outraging the modesty, etc., those sections are absolutely superfluous. They need to go away, and they'll be junked by the court, by the trial court. But as far as if there is an obscenity section, that should prevail, and there should be a precedent for this, Meghna, that he has to be held guilty under obscenity, whether you imprison him or whether you fine him, but there has to be a precedent for obscenity in this kind of a thing, because social media is going to continue, stand-up comedians are going to continue, that's their job, that's the right to livelihood. But where does the right to livelihood stop? What are the boundaries? So that is something, by giving this, forming this as a precedent, as and when the matter is heard, he should not just be let off with a warning or a rap. Today is a different issue, but I'm talking of the trial court where he should be convicted. There has to be a clear conviction. you can just give him a fine. You don't have to imprison him if that's what you think is legitimate under the circumstances, depending on what he says, how apologetic he is, etc. and all of those things. But there has to be a conviction. It cannot be a precedent by the police saying that, there is an FIR, we had several FIRs, but those FIRs did not reach the conclusion made. Because what happens is that a police FIR, somebody tomorrow will come out with an obscene comment, a more obscene comment, but he'll say, those police FIRs were filed, but they were just given a rap. So, why you are punishing me? How different am I from Ranveer Allabadia? Those kind of arguments will come. But when there is a precedent, then it operates in a different manner.
It's in fact very interesting that you're talking about setting a precedent, because I'd like to remind our viewers the exact kind of words which have been coming in by the Supreme Court. It has said that the words that you have used, Ranveer Allabadia, parents will feel ashamed, sisters will feel ashamed. In fact, Justice Surya Kant has gone on to say that he should be ashamed for the kind of language he has used. He has embarrassed his parents when he used words like this. He is a pervert. He used pervert-like language. And then he put it out as a public figure. He has responsibilities. So, Abha Singh, what really is the definition of obscenity as the laws stand today? Something that even Swapnil Kothari has said. That is it something which is going to be vague and ambiguous, or can we quantify? How do we go about this at the time of the trial of Ranveer Allahabadia?
If you go by Section 67 of the IT Act, which is also slapped on Ranveer Allahabadia, it very clearly says any content which depraves the mind of the vulnerable, which is transmitted, it is called obscenity. Also, if you go by the BNS, then anything that annoys, which depraves the mind, which is crass, which is perverted, these are the things which are used to define obscenity. But I would like to tell you that in the earlier case which I had done, AIB roast, Bombay High Court had also put a stay on the FIRs. There were 13 FIRs, including on Deepika Padukone and Ranveer Singh, etc. But that also Bombay High Court had put a stay. But the tragic outcome is that till now the case has not been heard. So I think that is why a clear-cut law on these type of issues has not been brought in, and I think it's necessary that this case is taken to the logical conclusion, so that if there is any vagueness about obscenity, because in one case Supreme Court said that that was Ashutosh Dubey versus Netflix, where it said that a stand-up comedian has to speak things and we have to take it with a pinch of salt, and something they say again and again because they're supposed to say it. But there also the Supreme Court said that difference has to be between comedy and satire, but here this is obscenity. So definition of obscenity needs to be crystallized so that a clear message goes. But nonetheless, Ranveer Allahabadia has been asked to surrender his passport. That itself will hurt his commercial work, and which will give a message that the courts are not going to be very liberal if they are going to play with the social norm as quoted by the bench.
That's very significant. You're absolutely right that the fact that his passport has also, he has to submit his passport, it is going to leave a longer impact, a more lasting impact at a time when we are still awaiting for the trial to begin and for the entire case to conclude. But Swapnil Kothari, one of the pleas that he has made is that either these FIRs should be completely crushed, which of course is not going to happen. These FIRs are not and have not been quashed by the Supreme Court. But also, in fact, I'm sorry, I'll just come back to you in a bit. Harish Nair is also joining us, our legal editor, who was there in the courtroom during the entire hearing. Harish, if you can just quickly sum up what has been the order of the Supreme Court. We all know the scathing comments which have made, but going forward, what next?
Yes, that's right, Meghna. In fact, the 20-minute hearing was full of scathing observations, lot of tongue lashing, but in the end, yes, Ranveer Allahabadia has been given relief. Relief in the form of, number one, he has been protected from arrest. The Supreme Court very clearly said that there shall not be any further action on the FIRs lodged in Mumbai by the cybercrime and also in Assam, and also the Rajasthan government has been restrained from filing any FIR, and Supreme Court making it very clear that there shall not be any further action as far as the same program, same episode is concerned. He has been asked to surrender his passport. He cannot leave the country without the permission of the Supreme Court. And also, when at the outset, when his lawyer, Advocate Abhinav Chandrachud, said that where is the section related to creating enmity between the two groups come? But then Justice Suryakant asked, are you defending what he has said. The Supreme Court went on to say that he has crossed all limits of violated all norms of morality, obscenity, and he was talking. His mind is very dirty. He was talking like a pervert. No society will agree to what he has said. He has put his parents to shame, sisters and mothers in this country to shame. And once one is popular, it's like going by him. He can blabber out anything. He can blurt out anything. Once a person is popular, he should have shown more responsibility. And the Supreme Court has very clearly said that what he said is totally unacceptable. And if one has done any wrong, law must take its own course. But saying so, as you rightly said, Supreme Court has given some relief, some interim relief to Ranveer Allabadia. So after tongue lashing, severe tongue lashing, scathing remarks, Supreme Court has given him relief in the form of protection from arrest, no further action on the FIRs, and also sought the views of the Assam government and Mumbai police as far as clubbing of the FIRs against him are concerned.
That, of course, has been his plea to either quash it or to club it. We'll have to wait and see what Assam and the Mumbai police reply to the Supreme Court. Based on that, they will take that decision. Thank you so much for joining us, Harish. Is it possible that the FIRs are going to be clubbed? That has been one of his pleas.
Well, I believe they should be clubbed just for the sake of the convenience of the accused, and there's no harm in that. And that's one of the things that's normal. So I don't see any reason why he has to run from pillar to post to different courts. It can be clubbed and it can be heard. That's number one. Number two is that if you notice, one of the observations was very clear. It was an indicator to the trial courts that if this is not obscenity, then what is? So from time immemorial, obscenity, when it was in relation to the books that were written, say Lady Chatterley's Lover, etc., in England, and then on to the United States and to even India, the obscenity has never been a crystal clear definition. It all depends upon what is the wording, what was the intention, and whether it appeals to the prurient interest of the people, which is very sexually depraved nature. So now this kind of a statement which has been made, queer the parents, etc., then obviously this clearly falls within the definition or within the interpretation of obscenity as interpreted by the several courts across past several decades. So you will never have a law which clearly spells out, like illustrates obscenity, but you will have always an interpretative solutions to that for precedents to fall upon. So I believe that this should be a precedent for social media people, for stand-up comedians, not only just stand-up comedians, but even others who use social media, who spew out different things under the garb of education. But at the same time, you can always say that yes, there is a precedent now, and that is something. As I said, it may not go into imprisonment. It could be just a conviction. So at least one could argue on the basis of this that, look, there was a conviction in the case of Ranveer Allabadia. It was a mere fine, but the courts never let him off. And this is what the standard has to be followed. Yes, you have the right to livelihood, but I'm sorry to say that it has to have certain boundaries. Even today, as I'm speaking on Times Now, I have to follow, which all panelists have to follow. Absolutely. So there's nothing wrong. We have freedom of speech, but we have to follow certain boundaries. So there's nothing wrong in that. Every right has a corresponding duty. Every fundamental right has a corresponding...
We have the right to free speech, but today the Supreme Court has made it very clear that you also have responsibilities. I have the right to free speech, yes, but I am also reaching out to thousands of viewers of Times Now, hence I have the responsibility as well. Well, thank you so much, Abha Singh as well as Swapnil Kothari for joining us, explaining to us what really are the boundaries between rights, duties, responsibilities, and hopefully from here onwards, we are also going to get a clarity and more crystallization of what really obscenity is in the BNS. Well, with that, a short break. Don't go anywhere. But of course, this continues to be one of the top focus stories and debates right here on Times Now.